The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome back, DFS Army. It is FantasyFling. We are taking another look at Yahoo DFS Week 9 main slate. Let's go. All right, so before we go ahead and look at the Week 9 NFL DFS main slate over on Yahoo, we're going to take a look back real quick, just do a quick review on some of the picks from last week. So pretty much nailed it with cash games and then with the top stack of the week. So, you know, your three cash game quarterbacks were Jalen Hurts, Tua, and Sam Ehlinger. If you paid down for Sam Ehlinger, he was $20, but really this afforded you to be able to pay up with your lineup. But, you know, the studs, the Henrys and the Barkleys and whatnot. But yeah, even if you hit with Tua and some of the right value plays, you definitely smashed as well as with Jalen Hurts. So running backs, we had established it. Derrick Henry was the top play on the slate because he had averaged over 140 yards per game to start the year. Then the last several times he played the Texans, he had got over 200 yards. So he smashed again over 200 yards and a couple touchdowns. So he was the top play on the slate. Obviously, there was that decision between him and Barkley. As I said, we're going with Henry. Josh Jacobs, you know, didn't quite get there, but if you were to pay down a little bit for Kenneth Walker and then do Donta Foreman or Tony Pollard, obviously your lineup did much better. And for me, Tony Pollard, he was a lock. Once Zeke was out, there was no way I wasn't playing him at $17. And this allowed pay-up options at wide receivers. So there were a lot of them. Justin Jefferson had a good day. He obviously didn't get any touchdowns, but still got a lot of yards. The top play of the day, though, would be Tyreek Hill, as he was also the top stack. DeAndre Hopkins got over 100 yards on a touchdown, so he smashed as well. You know, mid-20s, obviously, as far as pricing. So that's what we need. And then really, DJ Moore was the guy for me based on him being the focal point of the offense after Christian McCaffrey was traded. So DJ Moore at $17. Tyler Lockett had a touchdown as well. So really good there, specifically with DJ Moore. And you know what? Spoiler alert, we like him again this week because I don't know what Yahoo's doing, but after the great week that he had 150 plus yards and a touchdown, they priced him down from last week. DraftKings, FanDuel, it would be the exact opposite. He would be going up. Well, not on Yahoo, so he's going down. And then George Kittle, he got a touchdown. So, you know, tight ends, it's tough, right? Yeah, variant position, but George Kittle, he got a touchdown. Irv Smith was in a bad matchup, or a good matchup, actually, but he got hurt and just didn't have a good day. He's not going to be a problem anymore because he's out for 8 to 10 weeks. And then, you know, we like pay downs at defense. So, Tennessee, that pay down certainly worked for you. Top stack of the day, Tua and Tyreek. So hope you follow me on Twitter as I tweet this out every week. And normally what I do is I do the podcast. I kind of have my cheat sheets. And then as soon as I'm done with the podcast, then I finish my article and I tweet it out on Twitter at FantasyFling. So give me a follow if you're not following me. And then one thing I started doing this week, specifically with all the value that's been hitting the slate, is I start updating it on Saturday. I do a Twitter thread and update it. So you'll have that as well because there's obviously a lot of moving parts. So let's look at week 9. Now there's some more high scoring games compared to last week. Luckily, last week we had a lot of the games hit the over. And if you are a DFS Army subscriber and you have access to the Statsational power rankings and projections, you might have been able to predict this because Statsational was on a lot of the games that got in to the nuts last week. So, and we're going to slightly touch on that. But if you're not a DFS Army subscriber, now's the time. So many takedowns this year. The Millie Maker week 1, we've had multiple showdown takedowns. So use code FantasyFling for 10% off a VIP subscription. Now is the time to be a subscriber. Get the tools, the coaches notes, the Statsational power rankings, and of course the domination station. Now let's start it with Los Angeles at Carolina. Now on paper, this matchup looks really good for the Chargers going against Carolina's horrible secondary. Not Carolina, sorry. Atlanta's horrible secondary. Even last week, PJ Walker looking like Patrick Mahomes last week. That's how bad their secondary is. So on paper, it looks really good, but we do have some injury issues because Mike Williams is out. Keenan Allen, apparently his hamstring got worse over the bye week. So we're probably not going to get Keenan Allen. That said, we are going to get some really good value with Josh Palmer, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Carter, and then obviously Eckler would be the top pay-up option. So from a stacking perspective, I really like this game with Keenan Allen in it. Without him, I don't know. Probably still will have some exposure, but it's going to be tough to get there. Now, on the other side of that game, we have, Atlanta's running offense going against the Chargers' horrible run defense. And, normally if it was just Tyler Algier show who scored multiple times in the past several weeks, we would be excited about that. But we don't really know right now what it's going to be like because Cordarrelle Patterson is practiced today. He came off IR, so he's probably in line to play. And, in tournaments, I would like to take some shots on Cordarrelle Patterson. In cash games, I don't want any part of that, knowing what that split's going to be between Huntley, Algier, and Cordarrelle Patterson. But this game is one of the higher games on the slate, 49.5. The other game, back in it, Miami coming off that just amazing game last week where it was the Tua +2 Waddle and Tyreek Hill stack that took down several GPPs like the Yahoo Baller. So Miami's back. They project well passing the ball again this week. Also project well rushing the ball. They traded away Chase Edmonds this week to the Broncos, but they have shored up their pass rush. They got Bradley Chubb. So this game does project quite well for Miami running the ball and passing the ball. We do like Tua again this week. We like Tyreek Hill. Waddle's in play. Gesicki is a great value tight end. On the other side of the ball, Chicago does project quite well running the ball. Obviously, you have to think Justin Fields is going to have 60 to 80 yards of that. Most weeks that's what he's been averaging. And then you're splitting it. So is it going to Herbert? Is it going to Montgomery? That's not something I really want to bank on a timeshare, even though Herbert does look like the better back. And they traded for Chase Claypool. First week, we don't really know what that's going to be, so not too intrigued there. Now, low game total, Carolina and Cincinnati. However, Cincinnati does project well, according to the Statsational power rankings, as far as passing the ball. Now, there's no Chase, so the offense is more condensed. It's T. Higgins as far as passing offense. It's T. Higgins, it's Tyler Boyd, and it's Hayden Hurst. So on the Carolina side, I certainly like some Burrow stacks. Not in cash, I'm not going there, but in tournaments, I do like that. And then I think in cash, you can go to Higgins, absolutely. So, and that's on the Cincinnati side. On the Carolina side, Donta Foreman looked great last week, but Chuba Hubbard's coming back this week. So tough to say. Obviously, the way Foreman has played, you would think he would continue to get the bulk of the carries. Wouldn't go there in cash, but, play some Foreman in tournaments, obviously. He was in the nuts in a lot of winning GPPs last week. So, and then obviously DJ Moore, and we will get into that. He continues to be underpriced. He's a focal point of the offense. So love some DJ Moore. Now, Green Bay and Detroit, 49.5. This game actually looks really good from a lot of different angles. So obviously Vegas has it at 49.5. Statsational loves this game from both a rushing and passing and scoring standpoint. So it's kind of weird, though, because Green Bay offense, passing offense specifically, has looked so poor. So it's hard to really want to trust that passing offense. And really, like, who are we picking? Are we picking Dobbs, Tanyan? So it is tough from that regard. However, I think Aaron Jones is certainly in play this week, as he is definitely in play for me in cash and tournaments as well. I think you could certainly take some shots there. And then on the Detroit side, they traded TJ Hawkinson this week. DeAndre Swift, he is dealing with shoulder and ankle injuries, so we don't even know if he's going to play. If he doesn't play, love Jamal Williams. Also, Amon-Ra St. Brown is in play as well this week. Like him as well. So the Raiders, they got shut out by New Orleans last week. They're going against Jacksonville this week, coming back from London, and their loss to Denver. So this game, not a ton to like here. I do like ETN. He's just looked really good. He's been getting a lot of volume. He's in play for me in cash games. Jacksonville does project quite well passing and running the ball. Other than that, this game actually kind of sneaky. There's some sneaky shootout potential. So one of the more high projected games on the slate. Raiders are coming off a dud where they looked horrible last week. So this game, I think, as the week goes on, could potentially gain steam. 48-point total. So pretty good. Absolutely. And then Indy and New Orleans. Now, Sam Ehlinger, it was funny because even though he was so low price, and especially if you played him on like DraftKings where he was $4,000 and, could really change your lineup a lot of different ways, he only scored 8 points. So it really looked horrible. But if you watch the game, he was very close to having a 20-plus point day. There was a couple deep throws where, it was just right there. The ball was there. They just couldn't quite connect. Michael Pittman almost got in the end zone. It was called back, so he was very close to having a 20-plus point day. And if, his minimum salary pricing would have certainly been able to get in the nuts with all the other options that you were able to stack. So he looked pretty good, even though the score didn't show it. Now, Jonathan Taylor is potentially out this week. He's still dealing with an ankle injury. And we now have, if he's out, we have Deion Jackson, who's only $10. So he is certainly in play. Probably not going back to Ehlinger. Definitely not in cash. Maybe take some shots in GPP. Him with, Pierce and Pittman and whatnot and Campbell. But more so Deion Jackson at $17 or $10. I certainly like him. On the New England side, love Ramondre Stevenson. He's looked really good. We'll get into that a little bit more. He's really the only guy I'm looking to play. Mac Jones is kind of popping at the domination station as one of the top fantasy points per dollar plays. So maybe tournament, a little bit of exposure to him in tournaments, but cash, we're not doing it. Now, Buffalo going against the Jets. So this is one of the scenarios we've seen this before, right? Buffalo against Pittsburgh, was it 3-4 weeks ago? Onslaught stacks, right? So obviously you're not trying to bring it back. You're pretty much projecting a blowout. Specifically with the Jets, they lost Breece Hall. They don't have Elijah Moore. He's not active. Maybe he'll be active this week. Last week, Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin were in the nuts, but this week with Buffalo, you kind of pretty much expect them to put their foot on the Jets' throats. So maybe, obviously, Josh Allen is in play. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is always in play. Gabe Davis, so on and so forth. But in this game, we're probably not doing game stacks. We're more doing team stacks. Now, the next one, and that one is a 47-point total game. Minnesota and Washington. Not a ton to like here. Justin Jefferson has obviously gotten a lot of yards, but he just hasn't gotten the end zone. So he's a GPP play, obviously, just based on his talent and the elite volume that he's seeing. I do think he's due for some positive regression. However, not a whole lot to like in this game as it's a low total. I will say on the Washington side, there is some pretty good value over on Yahoo. Terry McLaurin, he is continuing to be low price. Heineke loves Terry McLaurin. So past 2 weeks, he's given him 8 targets. Terry McLaurin got in the end zone a couple weeks ago. Last week, he had about 100 yards and, had a play that was very close to scoring a touchdown. So Terry McLaurin, I do think, is in play. Other than that, not a ton I like from this game. Now, Seattle and Arizona, this is looking like a good game. These two have really had some shootouts in the past. I remember it was a couple years ago. Seattle and Arizona had that, game that really went off for, I think, like 70 plus points. So this game, 49.5, what you like about it, from the Statistical Power Rankings and projections, this game projects as, the third highest game on the slate, both from a rushing and passing standpoint, projects quite well. And, when we look at both teams, it's really not that big of a surprise. So you have DK Metcalf, you have Tyler Lockett, you have DeAndre Hopkins, Zach Ertz, Rondo Moore's looked really good. So you have a lot of weapons on both sides. This is a game that can definitely shoot out. So there are both cash considerations in this game and tournaments. And then the last game, LA Rams versus the Bucks. In this game, it does not look well. It's got a very low total, 42.5. And from just the statistical rankings, it looks even less than that. So does not look good just because these offenses haven't been firing, and they both really have pretty good defenses. So regardless of the fact that you have Cooper Kupp and you have Allen Robinson, and pretty good quarterbacks on both sides, at least they have been in years past with Stafford and Brady, and you have Godwin and Evans and Fournette on the other side, it just doesn't look very good. So maybe small exposure in GPPs, but other than that, there's really nothing that we would like from this game. So as I mentioned with my weekly article that I write, this is kind of my cheat sheet right now. This will be out in an hour, 2 hours, and I will tweet it out as it's done. But kind of where I'm going in cash games this week, for me, I really like Josh Allen, and it's just because of his floor. So Bills, they have the highest projected game total on the slate at 29 points, almost 30 points. We've seen Josh Allen just flex in these spots before, in onslaught stacks specifically. So with the emergence of, defensive back Sauce Gardner in New York, I'd prefer, if you're doing stacks, I would prefer to play Gabe Davis over Diggs this week, just because Gabe Davis is $24 and Stephon Diggs is priced all the way up at $40. And, specifically projecting to be a non-competitive game, this just is the type of spots where, Gabe Davis will normally smash, and Diggs has to do a lot to get there. So Josh Allen, that said, over the entire season, his average is 27 points per game. So it comes with high floor. We need that in cash games. We're not looking for a lot of variance. So we're looking for high median scoring, good floor. We like that with Josh Allen. I was actually all about Justin Fields. I was very much considering playing him this week because last week he was only $20. Well, he's now priced all the way up. So he's been the quarterback 2 in scoring over the past few weeks. And it certainly caused his price to rise. But at $30, I would just rather pay up for Josh Allen or take a chance on a lower price, like $20 quarterback. Just because the projected team total, it's quite low. It's low enough to scare me away at that price point. And, he does have a decent floor with his rushing ability, though. So kind of do your own thing. I'm going with Josh Allen because I do believe that we are seeing enough news that there's going to be good value on the slate that you will be able to pay all the way up for Josh Allen. Now, as far as running backs, Eckler, we got Keenan Allen out, most likely. Mike Williams out. The most sensible game plan would be for them to just feed Austin Eckler the ball. He obviously gets carries. He gets a lot of receptions. He's the top receiving back in the league at this point. So he's averaged an unbelievable 28.9 points per game over his last 4 games. And, they are going to be without their 2 pass catching options, the 2 top wide receiver options. So luckily Eckler also, he's averaged 2 touchdowns a game as well during the last 4 games. And we very much need that on Yahoo. And he gets an Atlanta team that ranks near the bottom as far as allowing rushing touchdowns. So he's priced up as a top back. I think you can play him if there's enough value that opens, like a Jonathan Taylor out and a Deion Jackson in. I think you can play both Josh Allen and Austin Eckler. Now, Travis Etienne, they obviously traded James Robinson because Etienne has just been looking so good coming back from that Liz Frank injury. Looks very explosive. Going against Denver last week, who has a really good defense, he got I believe he got like 150 yards. So the past 2 weeks, we've seen him 19 carries on average, 135 yards and a touchdown. And then the Jags do project very well this week, according to the sensational power rankings on the ground and through the air, which is great because ETN does he works in both those areas. He carries the ball, he gets reception. So we like ETN this week. And then Aaron Jones as well. So he has a 16.14 projection, fantasy point projection this week at DFS Army, which is third among all running backs, and he's priced $6 below. So he's in the 20s, mid-20s, and the other running backs above him are in the 30s. So he's great value this week. After getting 20 carries last week and averaging 7 yards per carry, he gets the Lions defense this week that is allowing over 5 yards per carry. So love Aaron Jones. Ramondre Stevenson, his volume, it's just been really good lately, too good lately. And last week he got 47% of the carries. Not a ton, right? It's in a timeshare, but he's also seen a 27% target share in the passing game. So between the two, he is getting a lot of volume. And he has 3 touchdowns in the past 3 weeks, and we really need that on Yahoo. We need touchdowns in their half PPR scoring format. So I would say the one concern here is the game total is low, as well as the team total. So that said, though, the Patriots are home favorites, and, we like that for running backs. So now I will put this in the Yahoo article too, but I have a few maybes because this is all dependent on, obviously, the news, because I broadcast this on a Wednesday. So by the time on lock on Sunday, we will obviously have a lot more clarity. So I'll update this over the weekend as the news comes out. But as of Wednesday, Swift hasn't practiced due to ankle and shoulder injuries. Campbell also said during a couple days ago that Swift probably got more carries than he should have. So got more carries than he should have. He didn't get a lot of carries, by the way, and he's still dealing with injuries. So I think the most likely scenario for a losing team who just traded away one of their best players is to probably just sit Swift. Jamal Williams, he has 4 games with 2 or more touchdowns this year. So he is $22. He's a cash game lock for me if Swift is out in this game that projects as high scoring. So the other guy, Tyler Algier, as I said, if there is no Cordarrelle Patterson, then I do like Tyler Algier at $15, just because the Chargers rush defense, it's the second worst in the league. So he's a really good play for me. Now, Deion Jackson, as I said, he's $10. Obviously, Yahoo didn't anticipate Jonathan Taylor missing this game. Otherwise, I think they would have priced him up at least, $5 higher than the $10 salary that he is. So if Jonathan Taylor is out this week, Deion Jackson is last week's Tony Pollard and maybe even better value, because the last game that he started, he already had 120 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. He scored 23 points, and he's $10. You have to play him at that salary. He's basically a lock with Jonathan Taylor out. As far as wide receivers, there are a lot of good wide receivers this week. So I think with the running back value, that's kind of just going to guide you where to go with your wide receivers. If you're able to pay down for Deion Jackson at $10, then, you pay up for some of these wide receivers that are expensive but are in great smash spots. So Tyreek Hill, it's funny, him and Justin Jefferson, they've only have like 1 to 2 touchdowns between the two of them since like week 2. And they both have a crazy amount of yards. Specifically, Tyreek Hill, through 8 games, he already almost has 1,000 yards. So he's on pace for a 2,000-yard season, 32% target share. It's the elite of the elite. And he's actually, even just without all the touchdowns, he's second right now in overall scoring for wide receivers, just behind Stephon Diggs. So 16.83 projection. It's just a fraction of a point behind Cooper Kupp. So he's currently second in far as wide receiver projections, and he's $7 cheaper this week on Yahoo. So love Tyreek Hill this week, and another good game environment for the Miami passing offense. T. Higgins. I like T. Higgins because there's no Jamar Chase. So he's a numero uno in the Cincinnati passing offense without T. Higgins. Obviously, Tyler Boyd is a good play as well, specifically in tournaments. And this is a passing offense that it's top 3 this week, according to the Sensational Power Rankings. So, and it's no surprise why Carolina, they ranked 11th worst passing defense in the league. So matchup is certainly favorable by all metrics. Gabe Davis, mentioned him. If Diggs is going to get Sauce Gardner, he's priced all the way up. It's projected as a non-competitive game. I would much rather pay $24 for Gabe Davis this week. He's got that big playability. The last time the Bills were in a spot like this where, it was projected to be kind of one-sided, Gabe Davis had 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. So we need the touchdowns, and he certainly gets them. As I said, Josh Palmer, this is the highest projected game total on the slates. And the Chargers, they're looking to capitalize on the Falcons' awful secondary without Allen, most likely, and definitely without Williams. So, I'm not super excited anymore about going here in tournaments, but certainly in cash games, Josh Palmer is very playable at only $19, and he's going to really provide some exceptional value being wide receiver 1 in a high-scoring game with an elite quarterback. And then, as I mentioned, Terry McLaurin, 26% target share last week, back-to-back 8-target games since Heineke took over as the quarterback. And, he has 86 yards and a touchdown. So great value at $19. And then DJ Moore. I don't understand this. So he was $17 last week. Okay. He had one great game. The first week they traded Christian McCaffrey. And then he followed it up with an even better game last week when he was $17. And this week he's $16. He's averaged 10.5 targets, 110 yards, and a touchdown over the past 2 weeks. And, his salary is dropped. So this is an easy play for me. Now, Rondale Moore, I have to always think about the top fantasy points per dollar plays in the optimizer, because like last week, for example, the optimizer when I'm building lineups kept throwing in Garrett Wilson. Sure enough, who ends up in the nuts? Garrett Wilson. So the optimizer just knows better than you do, and I'm just going to trust it. So he's a top fantasy points per dollar play. And it makes sense because with DeAndre Hopkins in the offense, he's just finding more opportunities to score points. He turned 20% target share and 92 yards and a touchdown last week. And it's just crazy. He's only $11. He certainly should be in the teens. As far as tight ends, I like Kyle Pitts. His target share. Now we'll go through this. This is another thing I was talking about. You have this as a DFS Army subscriber, and this shows obviously target shares. It shows snap percentage, rush percentage for running backs and whatnot. And it shows, not only does it show it on the season, but it shows the previous week. So you can start to see changes if you follow this. And this can give you an edge, certainly, if you see that a wide receiver is on an uptick in the offense, getting more snaps, getting more target share, whatnot. Kyle Pitts, 32% last week. So his target share is on the up and up, 22% on the season, of course. And he scored a couple touchdowns in the past couple weeks. So we certainly like that. He's $16. Coming in as one of the top fantasy points per dollar plays. And then Robert Tonyan and Mike Gesicki. So Gesicki got in the end zone again, I believe, last week. And he's just been getting a lot of targets. I mentioned him as one of the top ways to get contrarian last week, as obviously everyone was going to be on Tua, Hill, and Waddle. And just like he was, a decent contrarian play, he got a touchdown last week. So we like that on Yahoo. In fact, in the past 3 weeks, he's got 3 touchdowns. So if you can get a tight end specifically at almost minimum pricing, which is $10, and they score touchdowns, we certainly like that. And then Robert Tonyan, obviously, kind of as we looked at Green Bay and Detroit, this projects quite well from both a rushing and passing perspective, and it's also one of the highest projected games on the slate. So certainly, I think Robert Tonyan is a good play at tight end. Now, last couple things I want to look at. Defense. So I got Miami and the Los Angeles Chargers. we're looking for, obviously, cheap defenses from a fantasy points per dollar perspective. We want a defense that potentially could exceed their fantasy or their salary by quite a bit. So we got the Los Angeles Chargers this week going against Atlanta, which, just face it, just not a very good team. And then certainly as well with the Miami Dolphins. So we got Miami going against Chicago. Miami, this is a team that can score a lot of points. They can get after, they got a pretty good defense, even better with Bradley Chubb. And they could certainly, obviously, get after the quarterback a little bit. Now, Justin Fields has looked a lot better, but if Miami can really score touchdowns and then get Chicago in a negative game script where Justin Fields is not trying to run as much and they really need to force the issue and pass the ball, that is how they can obviously produce turnovers and really pay off their salary. So those would be a couple of the defenses that I'll be looking to target as of right now. Top Yahoo stack of the week. I really like Josh Allen and Gabe Davis. And we'll kind of look at projections here. It's from a projection standpoint, a fantasy points per dollar standpoint, and also the salary, the projected ownership isn't too crazy. So let's go over to FanDuel, as they do half PPR scoring as well. So, yeah, obviously Josh Allen projects as the top quarterback of the week. Now, he's on Yahoo, he's $40, and this projection is going to be the same, so 26. Projected highly owned. However, if you go to wide receivers and we do projected ownership, Stephon Diggs is coming in as the top dog. He obviously has a tougher matchup this week. So everyone is all over that. 25%. Gabe Davis, 10%. So that is certainly leverage. You could go different ways with that. You don't have to play Gabe Davis, but that would be my stack of the week. Like I said, I really liked Los Angeles Chargers early on in the week. More so before, we got the Keenan Allen news. I would have preferred that. I still think you can go there. I just don't think you have the same type of ceiling with that passing offense now, with no Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams in the offense. So I don't like it as much. I would prefer, I think you can definitely go to Joe Burrow stacks this week. There's a couple other stacks that I would certainly like. Kyler Murray does look better if we're looking at some leverage stacks. Kyler Murray looks a lot better with DeAndre Hopkins in the offense. Now, he threw a couple interceptions last week. Otherwise, he would have been in the nuts because he threw several touchdowns, and he also, he threw for a lot of yards last week. So he had a good week. Cut out the interceptions, and he would have been in the nuts last week. So Kyler Murray's playable. This game is projected quite well from a rushing, passing, and scoring standpoint. I think you can go either way in this game. Geno Smith as well. And obviously with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. The thing about Geno Smith, he's played quite well. He missed some throws last week, had some drops. But the thing with Geno is the offense is scheming wide receivers open. So watching that game, one thing I noticed, oftentimes on his first look, DK Metcalf is open. Tyler Lockett's open. They got a good route to Noah Fant, who's wide open. He's the first look off the play action. So there are Marquise Goodwin's been playing well. So when they're scheming guys open and you got playmakers, you want to definitely take some chances there. We've seen Geno in the nuts this year, and obviously he's cheaper over on Yahoo. Coming in low owned, we like that. So Murray, Geno, low owned. I also like Joe Burrow, 7%. So probably less people are going to be on him now that Chase is out of the offense. They just got smoked by the the Browns on Monday night. So Stud coming off a dud. I like it. Some of my other leverage plays that I would be looking at this week, we could just kind of go down the list. And this is, one of the things we use with the domination station. Now, when you're building lineups, you can pretty much set a cap. So, like, if you want to set it to, depending on how large the contest is, if you want to set it to, like, if you're doing like a large field GPP, like the Millie Maker, you might set it to like a max of 110, right? And you can, and this will also help, obviously, get in some more leverage plays. But specifically, if there's players that you really like when you go through the projected ownership, you can like smash a love on them. Let's see, like Donta Foreman. Let's say Chuba Hubbard has to sit out again this week, or we just really like Donta Foreman again this week. You think that they're going to go right back to him. You could certainly hit him with an Adore, and then you can even do minimum exposure. So if you really like someone, you can do like 20%. So when you hit optimize, when you're building your lineups, you're going to get no less than 20% exposure. If you don't want a ton of exposure, you want between 20 and 25%, you can hit maxes as well. So this is something, obviously, that you can use to sort through some of the really good plays. Now, Jamal Williams is 2% projected own right now, but there's no way that's what it'll be if DeAndre Swift is ruled out. So this is something that, obviously, on a Wednesday, you get an idea of, if there's no injuries, the players that, you know, their ownership for the most part, like, for example, let's see, Kenneth Walker, right? You can pretty much more or less project that his ownership is going to be about 10%. Obviously, with a player like Jamal Williams or Donta Foreman, we need news about Chuba Hubbard. We need news about DeAndre Swift. So something to keep in mind. So, yeah, for example, in that Seattle-Arizona game that's projected to be back and forth, if you can get Tyler Lockett at 5% own, stacked with Geno, great leverage play. Same with DK Metcalf. In fact, if no one's going to be on this game, this is a game I will definitely be on. Some really good leverage plays here. Isaiah McKenzie. So Isaiah McKenzie, another guy. Everyone's going to be on Stephon Diggs. Everyone's going to be on Gabe Davis. How are we going to get different? Like Isaiah McKenzie, 4% projected ownership. Same thing with Josh Palmer. Now, this is crazy to me, right? So if Keenan Allen is ruled out and Josh Palmer's ownership stays low, I would have 100% exposure to him in that game. Gerald Everett, he is now on Yahoo, he's priced higher. So I do think his ownership would probably be a little bit lower than what this is projected. So I would certainly like Gerald Everett. Zach Ertz is another guy. He's getting less looks, obviously, because of the emergence of DeAndre Hopkins coming back from suspension. But if he's going to be low owned, I would certainly take some shots on Zach Ertz. And then Darren Waller, he's ruined my season-long league. But if he comes back this week, he's low-owned, going against the Jags. Yeah, sure, why not? Greg Dulcich lit them up last week, who, by the way, is going to be he's going to be a problem. He creates mismatches, much like Darren Waller does, going down the middle of the field. And then Gesicki, we talked about it. So Gesicki coming in low-owned at this point in time. Obviously, everyone's going to be on Tyreek Hill. I believe Jalen Waddle was going to garner a lot of ownership as well, like a decent amount. I believe Waddle actually quite a bit lower. Yeah, Jalen Waddle, 1%. So Jalen Waddle and Gesicki would both be great leverage plays for me in tournaments. You can double stack them, obviously, with Tyreek. Tua and Tyreek. You could do Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, or Tua, Tyreek, and Gesicki. You can obviously double stack them, but if you just want to get different and, specifically like a skinny stack, if everyone's going to be on Tyreek, maybe you just play Waddle. Maybe you just play Gesicki. Maybe you do Waddle and Gesicki. So different ways to get different in that game. And then obviously now, if you guys follow other podcasts with DFS Army, obviously if you play DraftKings and whatnot, I did the Millie Maker MME strategy. One of the biggest ways to get leverage on the field, as we saw this past week in the Millie Maker with Grey Poupon, is playing different defenses, right? Grey Poupon put 3 lineups in the Millie Maker, second, third, and fourth. The difference between the 3 lineups was defense. He had different defenses. So he knows that that's a high variance position. So if you can get defenses that are low owned in a good matchup that can potentially go off, that can be the difference between winning literally 10th place in a GPP or first place. Sometimes we see these defenses go off for 20 plus points. So it could be a huge difference. So try to find some of these defenses in good matchups. The Detroit Lions or the Green Bay Packers, for example, going against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions don't have a great offense. They just traded away one of their best players. So this is, just not a very good team. Take some chances there with teams like that. Seattle. Even if a game is projected as high scoring, we've seen it over and over. Games projected as high scoring, one of the defenses in that game ends up in the nuts. It's crazy. It happens all the time. So New England going against Sam Ehlinger, things like that. A rookie quarterback making a second start. So take some chances there as well. Hope y'all have a great week. If you watch this podcast and you like it, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share. And hit that notification button because we go live. We do weekly showdowns. They'll do a tournament strategy. They've been killing the showdowns, and they go live with that. If you want to be one of the people that binks a showdown, certainly hit that notification button so that you don't miss it when they go live and watch that. And obviously, hope y'all have a great week. We will see you next week. Win some monies.